all this branch code is mixed in one place, integration. And this integration further goes, let's say, into release. Eventually, it is all one piece of code, because in the end, it is one project itself. Even though multiple copies are there, it is all combined together. That multiple copies are temporary. Eventually, guys, what will happen? The code of these three developers will come at one place, integration, one project in which everything will be there. If you compile it, if you execute it, it is one basically. Finally, when you deploy this into, let's say, production, there also finally one jar file is going to go. Yes, you move it further into master and deploy, but just understand, you have one project. You have one project. We have one project. But it needs to have capability to run in multiple environments. That's what it is. This is our requirement. You are not going to create separate projects for every environment. You have just one project. And we need to have the capability to run the same project code in multiple environments. So for dev environment, QA environment, furthermore, after sprint is completed, UAT environment, and after that, prod environment. So guys, dev environment, QA environment, UAT environment, prod environment. These are, let's say, some of the standard environments which will be there in companies. Now we have a problem. We have one project code, which we want to run it in 4 different environments. How to do it effectively? You can say we will copy the code and then make modifications, but those things do not work. IT has a standard systematic process of doing this. One project code, you want to run it in different environments. Don't try to manage multiple copies. IT is saying there is a simple concept, the concept of profile. Okay, in IT, there is this beautiful concept of profile. They say using profiles, the same project can run in different modes. Okay, so profile concept, something comes like using profiles, the same project can be executed in different modes. What are these modes? You can run it like a dev mode, QA mode, UAT mode, prod mode. For now, just take this kind of statement. What is our problem statement? We have only one project, but it needs to have capability to run in different environments. One project itself, but capability to run in different environments. What does it mean to run in different environments? Let's take one simple example, database. In the dev environment, the development IP will be different. In the QA environment, the database IP will be different. And likewise, let's say we have UAT environment. Here also, the DB IP is going to be different. And here, prod environment, the DB IP is going to be different. So in every environment, the IP of the database is changing. That means when you start your Spring, guys, listen to this statement very carefully. When you start your Spring Boot application in the dev environment, it should connect to dev environment IP, dev DB IP. When you start your same Spring Boot service in QA environment, it should connect to QA IP. When you start your Spring Boot service in UAT, it should point here, and then here it should point here. So that means IP is changing. Configuration information is changing. This is how we can say. The Java code remains same, which runs the same in everywhere. But configuration information is changing. That's the observation. Okay, so what's our observation? In all environments, same Java code executes, but the configuration information like DBIP changes in each environment. Guys, understand it statement by statement the way we are discussing. Okay, what is that? Step number one, in all the environments, the Java code is going to remain the same, but it should point to different database IP because environment to environment, that is going to change. And when we say configuration information, one general practice to store configuration information is in properties file. Okay? Config information is stored in properties file. So what is this concept of profile? Is pretty simple, guys. Same Spring application we can run in different modes. What simply it says, you create multiple configuration files. Something like this, guys. Application. Currently, if you see from start.spring.io, the project that we got, in that project itself, we got it like this. Application.properties as the default file. This is the default thing that we got. Okay, let me do right click, refactor, rename, and copy this. This is the default file that we got, which came along with the Spring Boot. Now, what we are saying is, for every environment, the configuration information might be different. So create a different property file for every environment. Java code, you are keeping the same, configuration information you are changing. Because we want to make same Spring Boot application to be able to execute in different environments and which should have different configuration data. How they say is, you create multiple configuration files. For example, application-local. When you are running in your local machine, use the configuration from property file application-local. When you are running your Spring Boot application in dev environment, use it from application-dev. When you are running it from QA environment, use it application-QA. And when you're running it from UAT environment, have it from UAT. And when you're running it from prod, have it like this from prod. So guys, what is this concept? Configuration information is specific to the environment. So let's create a separate configuration file. In that, we will add that environment specific configurations. So in the local, so guys, what is configuration? If you really check this thing out, what is this? Application.demo. Basically, it is key and value. Server.port is the key, equal to sign, and then value. So configurations are arranged in the form of key equal to value. Now just imagine, local, you're saying db.ip is my key equal to, you specify your local machine database IP. Let's say 127.0.0.1. Next, when you are providing the configuration information for application-dev, you will be using this one. Whatever is the IP of dev environment, so you will know these details. IP of dev you will use. And likewise, so guys, what is happening? You will have multiple property files. In that, environment specific configurations will be added. Key will remain the same everywhere. Value will be changing. So guys, what is there? We will have multiple environment specific properties file. Okay, key will remain same, but values will be environment specific. Okay, further, which property file to use in your Spring Boot application, that will be determined by concept of profiles. This is where profiles come in picture. So this is the full setup. We need configuration information. It is like we have one project and one project needs to be executed in a manner it can support multiple environments. How to make this possible? Okay, all environment specific configurations, you put it into separate configuration files and tell to the Spring which property file you want to use. How do you tell Spring? Using the concept of profiles. Don't worry, once we see it practically, you will understand. But now that means in our project, we need to have multiple configuration files, which is environment specific, first of all. After that, using the concept of profile, we need to tell Spring which property file to use in our while the Spring Boot application is executing. So in the dev, when we execute, we will say, hey, pick application-dev. In the local, when you execute, pick application-local. In the QA, pick this. In the UAT, pick this. In the prod, pick this. So using profiles, we will tell which one to pick. And in this property files, we will provide environment-specific properties. And you can see key everywhere will remain the same. The value will be environment-specific. And when you write your Java code, so this Java code will simply use this key for whatever business logic. So depending upon the property file, the right value will come. In the Java code, you will try to connect to this IP and life is jingalala. So Java code may no change, property files will do all the drama. Using profiles, we can choose which one to do. Okay. Guys, whatever we discuss right now, please share your quick understanding score of this one, guys. Please share your quick understanding score of this one. Because this is important. Once we have now, we will see it practically also. In today's session itself, we will see it practically. Let's not break it into 2 sessions. Tomorrow morning, may we have a session, guys. Tomorrow morning, we have another session. So at 10 a.m., it is going to start. Okay. So please share your current understanding score. 5, 4. Chalo, guys. 3, 2. Let's go. Chalo, everybody. And guys, don't think, hey, I am fresher. I don't know all this. Maybe I need to have more experience to learn all this. No, that's not the truth. As soon as you join the project in the day one, this will be your conversation. So don't think it needs a lot of experience in order to understand all this. If you get the job, this is expected. You need to understand this. You need to build the projects around it. And that is where you need to learn this. The sooner, the better, because it is mandatory. It's not optional. Okay? So even though if it is getting challenging, no problem. Think with a patient mind. Listen carefully. Good to see that majorities are 4s and 5s, but practice is the key. Everybody, even all the other guys, practice is key. 4, 5 means first level grasping is happening. Kuch nahi, understand it bullet point by bullet point. We have one project. We need to run it multiple environments. How do we do? Okay, environment specific configuration. We will put in property file. Using profile concept, we will tell Spring which property file to use. Simple. Bullet point by bullet point, understand it. Don't try to get confused here and there. Okay? Automatically things will be nice as soon as we see practical. Let's see practical, guys. Okay. Let's go with the practical stuff here. So simple. We will create multiple configuration files, first of all, in our application. And guys, we will learn via experimenting itself. Chalo, guys. It's not going to take much time, but let's get started. So generally, all these property files or any other, let's say, configurations, if we have XML configurations or anything, okay? So these additional resources of the project will be available inside SRC main resources. Under SRC main Java code will be there. And all these additional files which are required will be as part of SRC main resources. Currently, by default, application.properties file came. Guys, we did not make any configuration of this. Please note that Spring Boot application by default reads application.property file from your class path. Spring Boot does it by default. And in that, Spring Boot is already seeing server.port is 4242. That is where, when we run the Spring Boot application, Tomcat starts on this port. So what is our first learning here? Okay, the default property file, the default property file which Spring Boot app refers to is application.properties. Okay, so it's already going to read all that. Currently it's already happening right from the day one. It is using that. Okay, fine. Now we want to create environment specific property files. Let's create that. Pattern is there, guys. This is syntactical pattern. Okay, so keep the names like this itself. You can change these names. These things could be anything. Okay, but try to follow this standard pattern. What is the syntax for this? Syntax will be something like this: application hyphen, here you can put whatever name you want, dot properties. This is the syntax of how you should create it. Okay, this is the syntax. Generally we create environment specific, so we are saying hyphen local hyphen dev hyphen qa, but ideally technically you can choose whatever. Okay, but fine, this is what it is. We need to now create around 4-5 property files. First one, application hyphen local dot properties. So let's copy this. So resources, right click, new file. Okay, there is a file option here. You can choose that, right click, new file, and then say application hyphen local dot properties. Okay, finish. Next, right click, new file, application hyphen dev dot properties. Environment specific property files we are creating. Application hyphen dev dot properties. Next, let's create another one, guys. Everything okay. Application hyphen qa. Next, new file, application hyphen uat, and then next, new file, application hyphen prod. So environment specific property files we created because same project should behave differently in different environments. So multiple property files. Okay, fine. Now let's take the second example that we did. Okay, we want to add some properties here. So let's call that as db.ip equal to key names basically. If you want to add a separator, generally people adapt with dot kind of pattern here. Okay, you can just write like this also, dbip. But if you want more logically grouping, people use a dot convention, db.ip, they just say, but it's a string key name basically. And let's say for now we will just put since we are not writing business logic to connect to the database, so for simplicity we will say this. Okay, this is dev IP address. Okay, in reality we will use the IP address, but for now only understanding. Now we just want to see whether which property file ka data actually is used by Spring Boot application. Some practical demonstrations we will do. For that reason, we will just use this as the static value. Okay, so this is dev IP address. Okay, fine. Copy this, save, go to local. This is local IP address. Prod key, I'm keeping same values, only changing. Prod IP address, QA IP address, UAT IP address. Okay, very good. As we know, what we do, code a little, test a little. That's what our experiments are. We don't try to do everything. We do code a little, test a little. Errors are there, read errors, fix errors. That's how you do always. Working in programming is always like that. You don't code for 3 hours and then you test. Waste of time. Code small. Once the feature is to some decent something workable, just keep testing it in parallel. So we made simple modification. Let's start the Spring Boot application first of all. Right click, run as, build, clean, package. Let's start like that. Okay, clean is fine. Right click, run as, clean Spring Boot :run. Let's run this. We just created multiple property files and we are trying to see whether Spring Boot comes properly or not. Okay. So step number 1 we did, guys. This is how our experiments will be. Add multiple property files. Okay. Add multiple environment specific property files. Guys, there is some concept of even YAML files. In the market, in some projects, they might use a YAML file. The files extensions will be .YAML, okay, or YAML something. So either .properties or like this. So sometimes project will have this, sometimes it will have this. It's just a syntactical change, how things are grouped. We are continuing with properties. It's just a syntax change of how you arrange keys and the values. Grouping will be a bit different there in the YAML and notation. Okay. Anyways, it's basically key and value mapping. So we are choosing .properties. So add multiple environment specific property files. Okay. Next, let's see. Just see. You can see some built-in features are also there in your IDE. If you do right click on property file, it gives straight away option, convert these .properties into .YAML, YAML. So this kind of inbuilt some capabilities also there. So it is easy to just switch, but both are one and the same. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Both are one and the same. Syntax could be different, but it means keys and values, just representation of configuration data. That's it. Okay. So please be aware, YAML, YAML is the terminology. It can also be there in some of the projects. Okay, fine. .YAML. ID gave some option also. Okay. There also you will create environment specific YAML files. That is fine. So add multiple environment specific property file or YAML file. Step 1 completed. Step 2, start Spring Boot application. What did we realize? It is up and running successfully. Yes, all our code came. We are seeing Tomcat started on port 4242. Everything is fine. So starts successfully. But now the question, which of the property file did Spring take by default? Or did it completely ignore it? We don't know. Now we have to now start getting into that. There's interesting concept here. Right from the day one, we are starting a Spring Boot application. Now we need to look some things here. Observe this line. While it is starting, what it is saying? The second line itself, no active profile set. Falling back to default profile, and the name of the profile is default. Okay. So if we are not giving any explicit configuration which profile to take, it assumes by default a profile named as default. That's it. So internally, Spring is using some concept of profile, and profile helps to pick the right environment specific property file. Currently, we have not told the Spring which one to take, so it is just taking some random stuff. Okay, guys, here it becomes interesting. Observe. In Spring Boot, there is one annotation. Okay. how to read value from property file. The annotation is @value annotation. It works something like this. Let's see, we copy this db.ip. Let's go to this Stripe webhook controller that we have written. Inside here, let's just try to read this private string db ip, and then we will use @value. They go super. Control Shift O, import. Isn't it smart? GitHub Copilot is there, so AI is suggesting me the syntax. It pre-filled it for me, right? That is good. Somewhere it just went to the property and assumed maybe this guy wants this one, whatever. But this is the syntax. Just see, we added this @value and trying to take the value from the property file. We made this change in one of our controller. As soon as we made the change, save the file, below there are exceptions. Guys, in the week 1 or week 2, I think, we said the developer and the framework should become one. Whatever framework wants, the developer should understand how the framework operates. Then only you can debug and help the framework to work properly. Wherever you two are out of sync, developer and framework, exceptions will be there. Clarity is not there. What is going to happen? So now you need to already know when we provided multiple property files, when we started our Spring Boot application, we did not tell Spring which file to pick up. So Spring said no active profile set. I am picking up default. Abhi, Spring is picking up default, and now you are asking Spring, hey, read my db.ip. Spring will be like, pagal hai kya? From where will I pick it? If you want Spring to pick db.ip from some property file, first of all, you need to tell Spring which property file you want to pick. Right now, Spring does not know what you're trying to do because you and the framework is out of sync from one another. And automatically, when Spring is confused, Spring throws these kind of exceptions. Okay, could not resolve this one. So it's simply saying, I'm not able to find it because we have not told Spring which property file to choose. Okay, now comes the question, how do we tell Spring which property file to choose? Because there are multiple ways of that. One by one, we will discuss it. So if we do this, okay, exception. Then our next approach, how to tell Spring which property file or property file to choose. In order to do that, the concept is concept of profile. We need to say Spring which profile to pick. Based upon profile, it will pick the property file. How do you tell Spring? Guys, there is one simple thing. Application.property, we know that Spring always reads this. Okay, this is interesting experiment. Application.profile, Spring always reads. So that means, can we safely assume if we just copy this and put it application property, Spring should be able to read it? This is application.property. Maybe let's give it a shot. Yes, Spring was able to read it. So what are you understanding? Environment specific files it was not able to get, and that is where Spring was failing. But Spring is able to read the changes which is there in application.properties. So if we define it there, it was able to read the value. So there was no exception. Spring Boot application, Tomcat started successfully. Guys, make some experiments. Understand how the system works. So Spring Boot is able to read the changes from application.property, but it is not able to do that. But we don't want Spring to read from this place. This is environment specific thing only. So yes, we will be commenting it. How do you comment in the property file? Hash is the way to do it. Okay, now again, Spring is confused. From where should I pick? So we will tell Spring, there is a concept of Spring dot active dot profiles concept. Guys, there is a key available like this: spring dot active dot profiles. Spring dot active dot profiles concept. In that, in the value part, you need to tell the name of the profile. Whatever profile name you give here, accordingly, Spring is going to see that property file and it will read from that property file. So for example, if we say Spring active, and we know that application dot property, it is reading always. So, oh, not sprint, guys, it is spring dot active dot profile equal to dev. Spring active profiles equal to dev. Let's see now how it goes. Okay, first we will say local. Let's stop this. Let's cleanly start. Right click, run as, build, clean, spring boot colon run. Let's run it. Okay, let's see. I think our syntax for choosing the property file might be a problem. It is always going to the default. So let's go back to ChatGPT. Okay, and let's play around here. How to set profile dev in Spring Boot application dot properties file. I have application hyphen dev dot properties. Let's see. Oh, it is reverse. So that is wherever syntax comes in, internet helps. It is reverse. Spring dot profiles dot active, and we use the reverse one. Okay, so let's copy here. Let's go back. We use ulta. Spring active profiles. The actual syntax is spring profiles active. Yeah, like this. Let's see. We will try to run it like this. We will be again starting the system. Right click, run as, build, clean, spring boot colon run, run. Okay, spring boot application started successfully. So we need to be clear on, okay, spring dot profiles dot active. In the main property file, we are specifying this. How to tell Spring which property file to choose? We using the concept of profile, we need to tell Spring like this. In the application dot properties, application dot properties, in that we need to tell Spring dot profiles dot active is local. If we choose local here, Spring is going to scan through the system and find which property file has application hyphen this name, local, local. It will pick up this one. How do we really confirm that? Let's see here what happened during startup time this time. So when we made the change and started, what it is saying? Super. The following one profile is active, local. Earlier it was not able to find, so it was going to some default. But currently it is able to find local because we have configured local and we are telling Spring local. Spring has automatically taken local. And now theoretically, at least we know theoretically that if it has taken local, Spring is going to go to this place, application hyphen local, it will try and it will read this property. And then when we are using Stripe webhook controller of @value, it will try to provide the value here. Spring is able to find it. That is where there is no exception. That is our theoretical understanding. Maybe that is happening. But now the question is, can we print the value of dbip? Can we print the value of dbip? One more concept of Spring we will understand. Guys, Spring, okay, there is another annotation. This is not the annotation given by Spring. This is given by the Java team. Okay. So there is, but Spring has implemented it. Spring has given capability to that annotation. So the annotation was defined @post construct. This is given by Java team itself as part of Java libraries. But Spring supports this annotation. Okay, let's look at it first. What exactly this annotation is? Java team has provided this annotation. Let's say this my method which we wrote, we will say @post construct. Just see. And if you see Control-Shift-K I am doing, it is given by Jakarta.annotation. So it is provided by the Java related team itself. Okay, all the other annotations that we used, @value and all, just see post mapping, request body, they were Spring provided annotations. So that means in programming, annotations are even defined. The way @override is given by Java guys itself, right? Similarly, @post construct is also given by the Java team, but Spring provides capability of that. What is that capability? @post construct says whenever Spring is creating an object of this, we know Spring Bean concept when we discussed in the last week. When you use @REST controller, Spring starts creating an object and maintaining object. So whenever Spring is going to create an object of this controller, post construct says after the object is constructed, call this method. Generally, some initialization activity, if the developers wants to do, they can write it in this method. So guys, what is @post construct? It is given by Java team. The default behavior is whenever object is created, after that initialization logic can be written in this method. And Spring is using this capability that automatically whenever this Spring Bean is created, Spring hooks and calls this method, and this logic runs by default. Okay, can we see it once? Can we see it once? We are just adding it and doing a save. Just we added this constructor and doing a save. Just see. So by that way, it is already showing this is my method. So that means when Spring created an object of this, then after that, this was also invoked and we saw some initialization logic also. So guys, @post construct annotation gets invoked. Okay, given by Java team. Okay, gets the method annotated with this, gets invoked after the Spring Bean is created. So we saw this already. So this is going to save some of our time. We don't have to go to Postman for calling the methods. We can straight away see that is where we just added. We learned a new concept also in the journey. @value we learned today. Another one, @post construct we learned today. Another thing, so far we were seeing annotations by Spring. Now we saw, oh, Java related annotations might also be effective sometimes in the projects. New concepts are coming up, small and small things here and there. Okay, now as part of this, let's just try to print this dbip. @value printed. Now we will just print, okay, dbip colon, we know already how to log it, variable name colon value. So we will do the same pattern here. Okay, save it. Let's go. Just see, this is local IP address. So it worked or not? Try to imagine the flow, what is happening here. In our project, we created multiple property files, environment specific. By default, Spring is not able to read. But which profile it is reading by default? By default, it is trying to read a profile with the name default. Spring is trying to read a profile with the name default. What does this mean? If you create application hyphen default dot properties, Spring will be able to read that. You can do this experiment by your own self later on. By default, if you create any property file in your system with the name application-default.properties, Spring will able to read it, because that's what it is default trying to do. It is trying to look for a profile with the name default. If you put like this, it will work. But we want to stick with our environment conventions. So we are saying we want local. We want local to be the term. So it is very clear that local machine testing environment we are talking about. So how did we override it? Yes, we went to the property file. We learned a new property, Spring profiles active. We set it up to local. Let's put it here. Use internet for wherever syntax and all comes in picture. But yes, we used the default property refers to this multiple, then fine, this okay, tell Spring this one. Yes, we already wrote this. Okay, and then Java post construct default is here. Okay, so default we made local, we added a post construct, we are seeing that it is local. Let's experiment. Instead of local, now we say dev profile, save it. Spring Boot started. Now dev IP came. Dev is configured in the dev. We can go here, we can check it out. Profiles active dev, super. So now profile picked up was dev, and here it came visible as dev. Another one, next QA, save. So we are able to change the profiles QA. Next UAT, UAT. Next prod, prod. Nothing but this is the place from where the drama actually happens. Spring.profiles.active. If we have set a value to this, automatically it is going to take it and process it. Okay, guys, are we clear with this so far? Give a quick thumbs up. Give a quick thumbs up, guys. Are we clear with this? Okay, let's do one thing. Let's close the day. Let's close the day. Okay, so there are a lot of further experiments. This is just the starting of this. Okay, this is just the starting of this. Now we have to discuss multiple other things. As a developer, you cannot keep editing the property file. You cannot change it always. So how do you provide this profile from outside when you're trying to run the application? Code changing is not a practical thing. Then we will realize Spring is providing it, but on the other hand, Maven also has a profile concept. So we need to use a combination of Spring profile concept and Maven profile concept, because for many enterprise applications, both of this is really required. So what is that concept? And then together, which are the standard commands that people will use? In tomorrow morning 10 a.m. session, we will continue. Okay? For now, let's take the attendance and let's complete the day today. Okay, guys. Chalo, 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 guys. Good stuff. So let's take the attendance. Okay. Multiple. Today we understood a lot of process of the IT further. And that is what, guys, working in a project is getting grip on both the aspects, process aspect plus technical aspect, and then functionality implementation. We are trying to do a lot in 2 months, so it is going to be a lot of topics. Okay, you need to put efforts, even though if it is taking time, you need to put efforts. You will really master all these things with time. Okay, chalo, let's take the attendance. It's already 2 hours completed, so we will stop here. क्योंकि आगे whatever we take bouncer जाने लगेगा. So we will discuss it tomorrow. Chalo, let's take the attendance. The code for today is 1919. Okay, so code for today is 1919. Here is the link. Please take it up. Quickly discussing what are the main things that we discussed today? We started session by showing some power of Git. After that, we started into how code merging and all that process is going to be. Pull request, down merging. We try to set it up, how you can delete a file and still you are safe. Space changes, line changes, everything is monitored nicely. Then up merge, down merge, we experimented all that. After that, we discussed further process of how local testing happens, dev testing happens, and then how the integration, everything will come together, deploying there. So some process part. After that, because we discussed dev environment, QA environment, we need to discuss how to build a Java application which runs like this. For that, profile concept is required. So then we launch profile concept. How Spring supports, right now we are discussing that. Some part is done, profile files and values we are able to do, but furthermore experimentation we will do tomorrow morning 10 a.m. Okay? So that's the entire summary of 2 hours. Chalo guys, done with the attendance, guys. Give a quick thumbs up. Okay, is everybody stopping the stream? Okay, done guys.